Arisa.
Thank you so much, Bobby, and thank you to the Outright Mental Defects. Hi, everyone. My name is Arisa, and I'm most definitely an alcoholic, and it's always a honor and a privilege to be asked to speak. And especially when there are so many people that I know and love that I'm seeing on the screen right now, and many of you that I've never met before, but it's a real gift of it shows me how my higher power has taught me how to turn calamities into not just serenity, but some of the greatest gifts of my life. I'm a big believer in what I call spiritual alchemy, you know, and if you'd ever told me that I would be grateful for the problems of my life, I would have probably shot the middle finger at you. Uh, I did not come here because I thought it was a good idea. I don't know very many people who wake up one day and say, you know what, I think I should just get sober, just out of the blue, because, it's a great day. That's not my story. My home group is the Beacon Group. My sponsor's name is Mary. The date of my last drink, I don't know if I said that or not, it's October the 13th in 1993. And for me, that is absolutely unbelievable. It's astounding. It's not supposed to happen to a girl like me, um, because I am the hopeless variety. And I'm originally from Corpus Christi, Texas. That's where I did all of my, that's where I pulled all my disasters. Most of my using was there. And it's also where I got to get sober. And I was really, really fortunate to walk into a Three Legacies group that made it really clear about what needed to happen and that I should be sitting down and learning to listen and listening to learn. And the truth is, I didn't want what they had, but I had nowhere else to go. I started drinking when I was 15 years old. That's not really true. That's the first time I drank on my own. Alcohol was just a normal thing in my house. From the time I was tiny, ice cream, you know, a cup of ice cream to a quarter cup of Kahlua. That was, dessert. That was the way my mom did stuff, and it just wasn't an unusual thing. I had no idea that it was actually illegal for me to drink. My first night out drinking, I get a minor in possession. I am the kind of girl who, like, you had alcohol and I take it to the wall. I mean, I managed to piss everybody off, color a lot of walls with bodily fluids, and end up in trouble with the law on my first night out, and I couldn't wait to do it again. I just couldn't wait to do it again. Within just a few months, I'm up in Austin, Texas, on 6th Street, drinking in bars. I'm I'm 15. I'm not allowed to be on the premises, but I'm 5'11", so it's okay, right? They let me in. I mean, my experience is I'm that kind of alcoholic. I'm not like a lot of people, a lot of stories that I hear where people talk about the first few good years and, it was fun and then it was fun with problems and it was problems. For me, it was add alcohol, instant disaster. Like, I mean, like instant disaster. Um, and it's like those sea monkeys, you add water and they go, do weird things to you or pop rocks or whatever. Like that's the kind of girl I am. And that first night, first bar, I got abducted and raped, and I was very fortunate to get away and survive that. But that was when my alcoholism really took me in a new direction. Um, from the very first night, something happened to me when I drink. It's totally, a different experience. I'm married to a quote unquote normie. That's debatable, but he doesn't have any addictions. Okay, so maybe to redheads, but as long as it's only to one, it's okay with me. But when he drinks, he gets slightly tipsy, you know, and he doesn't like the feeling of being out of control. So he does this very interesting thing. He stops. This is the man who, will put the cork back in with argon gas. I mean, who does that? Like, and then like he'll open it up weeks later and he'll pour some into a glass and he'll sniff it and then he'll taste a little bit and he's like, yeah, no, and he'll just dump it out. he let champagne go flat, and he's like, yeah, just who does that? That's alcohol abuse. Okay, that's a problem with alcohol. I don't have that problem. Alcohol has always been my solution. From that first night when I got that minor in possession, the reason I wanted more is because for the first time it felt like I had enough oxygen in my lungs. I could breathe. I don't feel out of control. I get the sense of, you know, ease and comfort. I get all of those ninth step promises that we talk about. Baby, I get in control. I can handle it, whatever it is you bring it on. And I definitely know how my experience can benefit everybody. I mean, if alcohol doesn't do that for you, you're not going to let it do to you the things I let it do to me. It's just that simple. And after that night where those horrible things happened, right, people started saying things like, maybe you should look at your drinking. And I'm thinking, maybe I need new friends. So I just changed and start drinking with football players. That's all I do. I mean, because you don't understand. I don't have a drinking problem. I have a sobriety problem. I can't stand being me. I need something between me and me. I need to get the ick off. When it really is a spiritual experience for me. And I don't know how to survive. People say all kinds of dumb things in the rooms. They really do. And some of them, are actually programmed, and a lot of them are not. Things like God will never give you more than you can handle. Not my experience. This redhead can't handle crap. I mean, that's the truth. Now, God can handle anything. But I didn't want to talk about that. I thought I was supposed to have all the answers all the time. The truth is, I was always scared. And I needed something inside of me to give me the ability to face life. That's what alcohol did. I don't have, I'll tell you my drug story. I smoked pot twice. I think there could have been a third time, but I don't actually remember. It's just in my head that there might have been. My friends would not let me near drugs. I mean, they were like, she's scary enough with alcohol. So, like no judgment or anything, but like seriously, like I was a disaster. I was a disaster. And so, I'm really, really grateful that people, um, made sure that was all I was able to do. It took me down. It took me down hard enough. I started my journey in sobriety a week after I graduated from high school. Now, on paper, I looked like I was doing great. I was class president. I was voted most likely to succeed. I was little miss everything. I was going to a great college. My GPA was, I don't know, 99 point something or other. And on paper, things looked great. But the reality was I wanted to die. The reality was every night I was praying. I was begging God that I would just not wake up. And when I got my driver's license, I had this 1976 Cadillac, and they developed a really, really, really long one. It's almost as big as my Suburban is now. And I would sit at this T-junction overlooking the water, and I'd be waiting for the light to turn green. Well, you don't run a red light on your way to suicide, but I was going to drive off the edge, and I was too straight-laced to be able to, run the red light. Might end up getting pulled over or something. I don't know. But this miracle happened. It's my favorite miracle of my entire life. Sitting at that T-junction happened more than once. Happened a bunch of times. Sitting at that T-junction, just trying to get up my courage to drive off the edge. And this is before Thelma and Louise, for those of you who remember the movie. It's before that. I was a little bit original. And the thought was, there's a keg party at the beach. Now, man, that's a spiritual experience. That's an answer. That is a practical program of action. That's something I can sink my teeth into, right? And I didn't have to die that night. Alcohol saved my life over and over and over again. And I didn't really realize it. But you see, that's the reason that, despite the fact that everybody else is looking at me going, you got to be stupid or crazy to drink again. And I'm not stupid. Told you, high GPA and all that. So what's going on here? It looks like I'm completely insane. But if you had to feel what it felt like to be on the inside of my skin, and I remember saying those things like, if what had happened to me had happened to you, you'd drink too. I really thought that, it had a lot to do. I grew up in a very abusive home, and there was a lot of stuff that happened to me that should not happen to anybody. And, alcohol took that away for a little bit. It got me here and now and in the present. And I wasn't afraid and I wasn't resentful. I wasn't burning up with anger, and I could just breathe. And so I landed in Alcoholics Anonymous a week after I graduated from high school. And unfortunately, it was not a vivacious group. It was everybody there was way older than I am now. And if you've been trying to do the math, I just turned 53 years old, and I, so I was 18 at the time, and everyone was well into their 60s and more, and they didn't have many teeth. It was the classic, like, there were a couple of women there, and, mostly men, and I think there were 6 to 8 people there. But I went every week all summer long because I really, really did get that, like, my drinking was not normal. When you're out drinking, the Texas football players, like I don't understand buzzed. I buzz past buzzed. My favorite drink is, what do you got? Right? Mad Dog 2020. One is until it's gone. I don't save lids, like I said. I mean, I don't, I drink for effect. I chug, Bacardi 181 and stuff like that. But whatever I can get my hands on, because I need to feel different. And I had alcohol poisoning on a regular basis. I got the DTs on a regular basis, and I had no language for this. My mother, who is the adult child of an alcoholic, she would look down at me and she would say, well, maybe if you suffer enough, you won't do it anymore. And her dad died with almost 40 years of sobriety, but it wasn't until she moved out that he got sober. So she really didn't understand alcoholism, and she sure as heck didn't understand what recovery could look like. And I never got medical treatment. That was another early resentment. You guys got it easy, like going to detoxes and all that. I had to do the shake, rattle, and roll at home, right? I got to get sober in the rooms, and today I'm so grateful for that. So grateful for that. I'm a sweaty, miserable, shaken mess, and it's really hard to say, you're fine. That's what you look like. But it took me I would have been a chronic relapser, except I didn't come back and forth. But I went off to college. And before I did, I asked somebody in the rooms, I said, how do you not drink and go to college? And they said, you can tell them you're allergic. And I thought they were telling me to lie, because they didn't tell me to read the doctor's opinion. I did not understand that I was physically and mentally different than other people. I understood that I had a tendency to drink way more. I thought I was proud of, my ability to drink, with the big guys and all that. And I knew that my girlfriends were drinking half a wine cooler and stuff like that. And I didn't know how to be ladylike about my drinking. I didn't want to be ladylike about my drinking. But I also, I could understand that, I had not a great relationship with alcohol, but I thought it was because of my father. I thought it was because of what had happened to me. I did my first geographic by going to college without even knowing I was doing a geographic. And, nobody said to me, well, you know what? They have AA in Houston. Who knew? Who knew there could be meetings in Houston? I mean, it never once crossed my mind. I did keep my big book with me, and I kept it backwards on the shelf so no one would see it, heaven forbid. And I spent the next 3.5 years trying to control my drinking. No enjoying, just controlling. I went 3.5 years without getting alcohol poisoning and without getting the DTs, and that's what I call social drinking. Like, if the invisible things are not crawling on you, for 3 days after you stop drinking, good job. Basically what happened is I was in South America and had an accident, and ended up back in my parents' home. I've been in therapy for years. I've been trying to treat this thing inside me because I heard what you guys were talking about. I knew that there was something spiritually wrong with me. So when I went to college, I started taking religion classes. I started going to therapy. I started taking antidepressants. I started chanting with the Hare Krishna. I'm doing tons of yoga. I can put my legs behind my back. My head. I'm vegan. I mean, I'm doing Pilates before Pilates was a thing in like 1991. Like I am out there trying to get, I'm all zenned out. I'm paddling up the Amazon. I'm swimming with the piranhas because God is in the Amazon. And I wouldn't recommend the piranhas, but still, I will go to any length to find this thing, right? But I don't think that I'm alcoholic because I thought I was too young. I thought that, when people started talking about, all the things they lost, um, if you've never heard the old joke, what do you get when you play a country music record backwards? You get your car back, you get your dog back, you get your, like I'd never lost those things. I had never lost those things. I didn't understand that it was, this inner thing that I had lost, right? I'd slept in dog houses, but that was by choice. I mean, I had burned down a lot of relationships, but I didn't really want those relationships. I didn't like my family, right? I mean, so I didn't get what you guys were talking about. And I spent these 3.5 years try harder, do better. Somehow, if I can make you think I'm okay, then maybe I'm going to be okay. And when I landed back in my parents' house because I couldn't because I couldn't go back to college because I'm a right-handed artist, okay, and I can't use my right hand. That's kind of a problem. And I had a stick shift car, so I couldn't drive. And all of a sudden, there I am back in Corpus Christi with no more coping skills than I had the day I left, the day I graduated from high school. And it took me 2 weeks to get the DTs, two weeks, right? And I thought it was just no big deal because I'd turned 21. So therefore, now it's legal, right? And I went and had a margarita one night with somebody and met a friend at a bar another night, and I don't remember anything after that. And fortunately, I was put in touch with somebody who understood alcoholism, who had seen other young people get sober, and was able to help me understand what was going on with me. That it wasn't about how much I used, it wasn't about any of those things, it wasn't about how much I lost. It was about why am I doing this when it's like playing Russian roulette. It's like playing Russian. I know there are bullets in the chamber, but maybe I'm going to get lucky tonight. Maybe tonight is going to be okay. Because for me, sobriety is all about how long can you hold your breath? 30 days, 60 days, 90 days. And then I need a little bit of relief. I need to get some of the me off of me. And if that's what it feels like, it's always just my skin is too tight. I have like raw nerves all the time. I am restless, irritable, and discontented unless I need that sense of ease and comfort. I don't know how to be in this world. I hate you when I'm not drinking. I mean, I hate me, but I really hate you, especially if you get to drink. The world is not fair because you seem to be getting away with what I need to be okay. And when I walked into that group, and they were so great. And they knew what I needed. They saw who I was before I had any idea what was really going on. And they made sure that I had a job before I left that meeting. I was the ashtray washer. I didn't smoke. I'm not a smoker. I've never been a smoker. And I'm like, what has ashtrays got to do? And there weren't even smoking sections in the meetings back then. It was like, it was healthier to breathe through the cigarette kind of thing. And I'm like, this is disgusting. I don't know what's going on here. They made sure I had a sponsor. That woman had 2 months of sobriety. She had 2 months of sobriety. I joke a lot. She didn't know crap about what she was doing. And she was a chronic relapser. And she was really scary. Like, she did things like cocaine, like, I'm like, oh, she scared me. She was a lot older than me. And like I said, she was scary. And they knew she was back again. And they knew that if she didn't start helping other people, she was trying to make her amends, and that if she didn't start helping people, she was going to use again. And so they gave her me. I mean, how much could she screw up, right? I mean, what are the chances? What are the chances? And she really didn't know much about what she was doing, but a lot of the things that she taught me from the very beginning, still, there are the pillars of my sobriety to this day. She told me things like, if you're not there from prayer to prayer, it's my opinion you were not there. come early, stay late, that you get a job. You help at every group that you go to, right? That you become a member, in good standing. She told me that when your sponsor says jump, the only question you are allowed to ask is exactly how high would you like that? She also gave me full permission not to like it. She said, have all the time. I get it. Like it's not easy. You have full permission not to like it. You can have all the temper tantrums you want in the parking lot. The Nike ad had just come out and she would just go, Nike, 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 just do it. Like she did not want to hear what my opinions about things. She said, that I did a third step, so I don't get opinions anymore. I had an opinion about not having an opinion. I had an opinion about everything. She made me go to her house every weekend to play canasta. I didn't even know what a canasta was. I haven't played canasta since, I have to be honest. But I'm like, why am I playing these cards with these old people? Because they knew that I needed to go somewhere and needed to do something, and they were trying to take care of me, and I didn't have to like it. And she told me, she said, I think if you don't work these steps, you will not stay sober. And I was so tired. You see, the truth is, I was not afraid of dying. I don't know that many people who get sober who are really afraid of dying. What we're really afraid of, most of us, is not dying. Another 30 years of this. I mean, I've never felt older than I felt at 21. I mean, 53, I'm a spring chicken next to what I was at 21. I felt like a credit card that should have already expired. There is a hole down in Texas that my body should be in. That's the reality. I am, 53 years past, no, I'm 31 years, excuse me, past my expiration date. That's Alcoholics Anonymous, gave me a life that I didn't know was possible. And so she had me, do all these steps and do them really fast. She said, the window's going to close. And by the way, you're moving back to Houston. So, like you already have a bad record of moving back to Houston. So let's make sure you get these things done. So I read my inventory to her, and I didn't know what I was doing. I did everything she told me to. And my first inventory was so imperfect. It really was. And, but I was willing to do anything she said. And even things that were stupid, even things that were really stupid, okay, fine. I will do it, right? And when I moved to Houston, I got a sponsor who actually knew what a big book was. And one of the first questions she asked me, she said, what step are you on? And I said, oh, I'm on step 6. And she said, oh, honey. And she said, no one's on step 6. And I said, no, I'm on step 6. And she said, no, you're on step 1. So that was another resentment I got to write out. But I'm so grateful that she took me back, because she figured out real quick that I really didn't understand a lot of the basics. And it was humiliating. It was, don't you, I need credit. I mean, I wanted to be instantly like, couldn't wait to have double-digit sobriety, and I've got like, I don't, it would have been great to have had double-digit days of sobriety at that point when I'm thinking that, and um, it changed my life to have a sponsor who really was willing to take the time and make sure that I understood what alcoholism is and understand what, um, a relationship with a higher power could be. She told me that when you get to I don't know, you're teachable. And that was the most important thing for me to learn, is that I had to stop being a know-it-all. I had to get an open mind so that I could have a new experience, because I thought I knew what God was. I thought I knew a lot of stuff. I thought I knew what you thought. I thought I understood. Oh man, it just being 21, you think you know a lot, right? But um, every year I know less, and I'm grateful for that. I thought I knew what humility was. I thought humility was humiliation. I thought that I was a victim. Hey, I am legally a victim, according to the state of Massachusetts. Like there are, police reports that prove it, right? And I didn't understand how much a part of my identity that had become. And she was the first person who helped me to understand that there are two different kinds of people. She said there are victims, and I'd heard another thing that people would say they're victims and they're volunteers, and it just made me sick. It made me angry to hear that. And that is not my experience. There are victims and there are people who've been victimized. I did not volunteer for the crap that happened to me. I didn't. It shouldn't happen to anyone. And having a sponsor that understood that, because she had had a lot of bad things happen to her, and she had, been able to find recovery and find forgiveness in the rooms through the steps, right, was really, really important for me. And when I did my inventory, right, being willing to have a God that was not up in the sky going, get the redhead, because that's what it felt like. That God had given me crappy parents, that if God really loved me, this stuff wouldn't have happened. That was the God. That's what I really believed. If you want to know what you believe about God, look over your last few weeks and see how much fear there is. See how many times you think you need to take control. That's what I really think about God, right? Trust and reliance? Whew, no, no, thank you. No, thank you. When I was a little kid, if I didn't take care of myself, nobody else was going to. I did not have parents who took basic care. They just didn't, right? And so I did not learn to trust people. But what I found out when I did my inventory is the most untrustworthy person in my life was actually this girl. It was me. That I had done more harm to me than anybody else had done. That, I was abducted, yes, and I had this burning, burning resentment. But what I got to realize was how many times I sat there almost like it's date night, getting out the popcorn and snuggling down into, and watching the hit parade of the horrible things that had happened to me to justify, you know, and I can enjoy a resentment like my husband enjoys a good steak. Like it feels kind of great to me. I love to feel, justified anger, and self-righteous indignation. I mean, give me an extra scoop of that. Thank you, and let me look down on you from my spiritual high top and let me tell you about what you should have done better because I know how you should change. It's easy for me to see what you should do differently, mostly because there's nothing between you and me but air. Right? Between me and me, I've never taken my own inventory. One of the things my sponsor helped me understand is that when I looked at, it's not like I mean, I was trying to be a Buddhist. I was trying to do all these spiritual things. So it's not like I'd never engaged in self-reflection. It's that the way I lived was like the fun house, where in this mirror I look like an Amazon, and in this mirror I'm the Oompa Loompa, right? That I thought I perceived myself differently based on the circumstances of my life. And everything was about life on a ladder, trying to peg where you are and trying to peg where I am. And everything was a comparison and everything was a struggle. And I didn't understand that those things didn't have to be related. And she started to help me to really see that when I looked at me, I judged myself by my motives. And I always meant well. I want to be kind. I can be very kind and very generous. And, I have a lot of, Al-Anon traits, I will nice you to death, to get what I want. And, but I will judge you by the results. I never once want to judge you assuming love. I assume malice. But I don't judge me by the results. You're supposed to understand that I would never do that, that you should see me through the best light possible. But it's like in the theater where you put the green gel on and somebody looks, kind of sick and horrible and evil. And, like I wore those kind of glasses. And that's what I saw you through, a whole bunch of muck, right? But when I looked at me, it was always conditional. If that hadn't happened, I wouldn't have had to do this. The only reason I let the air out of your tires was because you were being a real, right? All of these things. My way of making amends was, I'm so sorry I was an asshole because you were a son of a bitch. Conditional, conditional. I wouldn't have to be doing these things if the world and its people would just listen to me and do what I tell them to because I am smarter than you. I do know what's going to make you happy. I don't understand Baskin Robbins. 31 flavors? Come on, seriously? I mean, who eats pistachio ice cream? And I always love it. Somebody always puts in the chat, it's my favorite flavor. Yeah, because guess what? People actually do like different things. I didn't understand that. I really thought if I didn't like it, you wouldn't like it. And I have some interesting tastes. I'm an artist who paints with fire. I'm not, the garden variety. Yeah. So, but I didn't get that the way I saw things was not the way you see things. I love the set aside prayer. My grand sponsor was the one who really kind of started that. And I don't say the last line that you guys say, but what it really the set aside prayer to me, if you want to embody it, is I've got these big oaks out back, and they're 100+ years old, some of them. They're big trees. And if you drew a triangle around one of those and you put one of us on each point of the triangle and handed us a camera and we took a picture, it would look like three different trees. I can't actually know the truth about something from just one vantage point. I need that group conscience. In order to really understand the tree, I need to be able to see above it. I need to be able to see the roots. I need to be able to see, 360 degrees, right? I need to be able to feel the sap running in it. Now, how can you ever actually know what another person is feeling or thinking? That, where they grew up, going and spending time, I'm Brazilian, by the way. I know everybody guessed. But spending time where my dad grew up in Brazil really helped me to understand a lot of the things that he did and the ways that he is in the world. My mother used to always say he doesn't sound like a foreigner, but he does not think like we do. And I got to spend a lot of time down there and begin to understand how much different his experience really was. That he was going out and killing pigeons, for his family to eat because his dad was off, saving sinners in the wilderness. He was a missionary, and left his mom there, with a bunch of little kids, and she was, suffering from horrific depression. And dad knows how to braid hair. He never braided mine, but he braided his sisters. He didn't have any toys. There are a lot of things like I got to understand and about him. And the truth is, I didn't want to understand my father. I didn't want to give him the benefit of the doubt. I was really, really angry at my dad, and I didn't know that I was. Because nobody should do things like drag a child down the stairs by her hair. No one should rip her clothes off of her, ever, especially not in puberty in front of other people. Beat them, until they can't walk and sit and things like that. The stuff should not happen. He really thought he was saving me from hell. I really do believe he believed that, right? He was beating the hell out of me, quite literally. The man was terrified, is still, like that's the God he has. And trying to understand that, I had no interest in. So when I sat down and I was doing my inventory, I'd heard other things in AA, like you're supposed to find your part. Man, I hate that. I really hate that. I don't want to find my part. I mean, no, I do actually. The truth is I'm gonna, I like the idea of finding my part, and want to know why? I'll tell you why. Because, look, here we go. I'm gonna do a visual. If this is a whole and I'm going to find my part, this is mine. I never forget about this. I never forget about your part. And in the book, it doesn't say my part. It says we resolutely look for our own mistakes. It says I disregard the other person entirely. Entirely. What he did is not going to be discussed. But I sat there with my sponsor, and she said, she pointed out to me when she taught me how to do this inventory, she said, when we saw our faults, we listed them. Often I didn't see it. I really didn't. I needed help. And I sat there I spent the whole weekend at her house. She lived a good ways away. I had to drive a couple hours to get to her house. So I spent the weekend with her to read this inventory. And she said, I'm reading about, these resentments on my dad. And I said, well, what I did was I antagonized him. And she said, how old were you? And I said, well, pretty much my whole life, right? I mean, the first time I went to my mom and said, Daddy's hitting me, I can remember where she was, and I know that I was not even in kindergarten yet. Okay. And I knew something deep down inside of me knew that what my dad was doing was wrong. It wasn't, I mean, I'm tattling on my father to my mother. And she looked at me and she said, then what did you do to deserve it? And that's when I stopped asking for help because I just assumed that there was no help. Right. And so here I am sitting in front of this woman, and I think she's going to tell me the same thing I've always heard, that I've been angry at my dad all these years, that I'm angry at this man who abducted me, and that I'm going to have to say, okay, he gets off the hook and I'm going to carry the whole load of it. I have to take full responsibility for all of that. And she said, darling, that's not what we're doing. There is nothing you could have done to deserve those things. You were a child. You were a child. No child deserves to have happened to her what happened to you. We are not talking about that. That is your father's inventory. That is between him and his God. What we're going to talk about is, how are you using it today? How are you using it as your get out of jail free card? How are you using it to rationalize things? How are you using it to tell yourself that you're not worth something? How are you using it to beat yourself up? And quite literally, I beat myself up. I put myself in dangerous situations. I treated myself worse than my father ever did. And I would replay those horrible scenes to justify why I shouldn't be trying to do things, to justify why I didn't deserve to have a happiness, to justify all kinds of stuff. I did not take care of myself at all. I did not love myself. I would never, if I saw anybody treating another human being the way I treated myself, I would call the police. Okay? What I did to myself. There's a reason I couldn't trust anybody else, because I was not trustworthy. And she helped me to understand that that's what a victim is. A victim, I had become the victim. I am waiting for the world to give me yet another reason to say, aha, there it is. You see, it had become my personality and how I walked through this world. And the difference between being a victim and someone who is victimized is that somebody who is victimized, it is something that happened. It is an event that happened, and you can move past it and you can live on your full life. It is not who I am today. It's just something that happened. And it doesn't mean all the things that I want to make it mean. It doesn't mean that God doesn't love me. I didn't pull the short straw. The truth is, everybody gets crap. And then there's this great thing that she taught me. She said, listen, well, there are so many things, but she said, if you got the opportunity, let's just say you got the opportunity to go talk to God, and you got to sit down and tell God just how you feel about this cross that you've been given to carry. Like it really, like alcoholism. I mean, I got the eating disorder. I got the, alcoholism in my family. I've got all the abuse. I've got the being abducted, been raped a bunch of times. I've got, bullied like her. I mean, the list is long. Okay. And if you could say, God, listen, this cross, it's too heavy. And she said, here's the way the story was told to her, that God said, like, I get it. It's a lot. But everybody gets a cross. But I'll tell you what, you see that door over there? That's the room where we keep the crosses. So why don't you go in there and pick out another one? You can take any one you want. And you go in there and you look at, the big giant iron ones, the barbed wire ones, and all that stuff, until you find the little silver one that fits just in the palm of your hand. Even the edges are smoothed off, and you go out and you say, okay, God, I'll take this one. And God says, but that's the one you had. See, I don't think that life is fair. I don't, because we all start off at different places. I don't believe that God, that life doesn't give you more than you can handle, but God's the one who's supposed to be handling it, not me. These are God-sized problems that I have. And that's why I have to have a higher power, that I can't downplay, what it means to have a God in my life. And to understand. I mean, anybody here like Happy, Joyous, and Free? Happy, Joyous, and Free. We all love Happy, Joyous, and Free. Never met anybody who doesn't like, oh, happy, sign me up. That's why I drank. right? Sign me up, happy, joyous, and free. How many people actually know where it is in the big book and where it comes from? Not that many. Not that many. It's in the family afterwards where it says, we are sure God wants us happy, joyous, and free. Think about how different, my sponsor said, your life would be if you could actually walk through today being sure that God wants you happy, joyous, and free. Sucks all the malice out of everything. How about instead, God is hurting for you as you're hiding in the bottom of the closet? How about the fact that when you went to your mom and said, Daddy's hitting me, that that came from this place down deep inside of you where you knew it was not okay? Because God thinks it's not okay. Because that's how, we're actually wired. That's the God, that's where I began to see that maybe God did care. And it took me a long time to have a relation. Oh my God, down in Texas, man, they got gods. They got big God. They got big God country down there, And I mean, they get their parking spaces and, their hairspray works well. And I mean, whatever, it's all God, and he plays jokes and man, I hate their God, and I just, especially when my sister would say things like, oh, I'm praying for you. I'm like, oh, I just felt like somebody threw a bunch of slop on me. Like, please keep your God on your side of the room. I was one of the ones who changed all the pronouns and all that stuff long before that was a thing, you know? And I remember some old timer, we were saying the Lord's Prayer at the end, and I was changing the words. And he said, I hope you stick around long enough to understand why we say the prayer so that you don't need to change it. And that made me think. And if you want to hear more about that, you can talk about it another time. But when I began to see, that the real problem was that I was in hell because I had made myself the jailer. I couldn't go live my life because I had to make sure my dad didn't get out early. I had to make sure that all the people who had wronged me were not going to get out on parole. And I was stuck in that dank, smelly prison because I had put myself in the role of jailer. That was not the role that God assigned me. What my dad did is between him and God. The role that God is assigning me, and we talks about that in fear inventory, right? We're here to play the role that God assigns. What is that role? What does it look like to be a child of God? What does it look like to be an artist? I got to move to New York City sober and go to grad school and have this incredible life, I never thought I'd get married. Certainly didn't think I'd have kids. I've been through all kinds of crazy things sober. I was in New York in the middle of 9/11, lost friends, and got to stay sober through that and show up for people, right? When my kids were sick, were born, they were both really sick. And, it wasn't that God gave me sick kids. It was that God helped me to be the mother that they needed to stop the world and get them whatever was needed. And there were doctors that a lot of kids like mine sometimes really don't live. Okay. And I was told I was irresponsible for doing some of the things I tried with my children. But see, you guys taught me a secret. Don't you tell me what God can't do. Don't you tell me. Don't you limit my God. You see, we deal in miracles every single day here. Every single day. The worst stuff in the world. I said earlier, like, I believe in spiritual alchemy. The alchemists were like quasi-scientists. They were trying to turn lead into gold. And here in Alcoholics Anonymous and all the sister programs, what we learn to do is how to turn crap into gold. And when the pressure gets really, really, really high and you feel like your bones are crushing, that's when you get diamonds. But everybody goes into the crucible. Nobody escapes the crucible. The crucible is where you melt the metal, like an ironsmith or blacksmith. And I used to make jewelry, so I know. But in that crucible, you put the metal in, and everybody ends up in that crucible. But what a lot of people don't know is that you can add a chemical into that to lower the melting point so you don't have to stay in so long. And here we call that God. And on the other side, it gets poured into the cast, and you come out with some kind of shiny, beautiful piece of jewelry that just sparkles like crazy. You don't get that unless you go in the crucible. I don't want to be the girl that walked in the doors in 1993. I have no interest in being that young woman. I love my life today. The life that I have has been, hard, hard. Just in the last year, I've had, well, just over a little more than a year, but within 12 months, I had three major spinal surgeries, fused from T10 all the way down and pretty much my entire neck. And I'm dealing with a lot of physical pain. And but the truth is, I've been dealing with physical pain my entire life. My entire life. It's like my eighth surgery or something like that. I don't know. The truth is that I am not my body. God didn't give me the broken body. Didn't. And truth is that, you know, I have a lot of things that if I don't really stay close to God, I'm Attila the bitch. I mean, that's the reality. I need a whole lot of prayer and meditation, that's the way, that's my truth. Okay. I mean, I got divorced today. I have been married to David. It'll be 25 years in April. But I got divorced today, and that's the only reason I get to be married to him. Because I got divorced from self-pity, dishonesty, resentment, and fear. First thing I do every single day, down on my knees. Because I'm married to, and it starts with self-pity. How pathetic is that? But it's so true. If I don't do that, by the time I'm in the bathroom and my body hurts, oh man, let me tell you about what bad day that's going to look like. This is a girl who learned that I need a whole lot of God or a whole lot of booze. I got two solutions that have ever given me any kind of relief. And, if I'm not walking towards God, I am walking towards that drink. That is my truth. I didn't want to make amends, certainly not to my father. And I'm going through some real interesting stuff with him right now. My journey with my dad began with my sponsor saying, "You're going to make a list of the things he's done right." And I'm like, no, mm-mm, mm-mm. And I went home. I'm a good girl. I'm a good student, eat your beaver. Okay, okay, I have to do it, right? So she told me I even had to set the timer because I'm just sure I'm going to come up with nothing, right? And I came up with one thing, one item on the list. He taught me how to draw. Oh, yeah, I'm an artist, right? And from there, like the list grew. Like I said, trying to actually see what he did right. You guys taught me how to look for God's fingerprints. Look for God's fingerprints on my life. Don't just watch for selfishness, dishonesty, resentment, and fear, but catch him being good. What's the world doing right today? That's a harder thing for me to do. I'm like Velcro for the bad things and Teflon for the good things. They just slide right off of me. I noticed the one person that didn't do it right, you know? And the big part of my amends is slow down and notice and see you. Look people in the eyes and really care, right? Really care. And I've had the opportunity to have a relationship with my father. And I had to let go of what I thought a father was supposed to be. But because of the type of people that my parents were, I got to be a different kind of mom. A mom who stops the world to help her kids. And today my kids are healthy and you would never know they'd ever had any trouble. They are walking miracles. One of them's about to graduate from college. The other one's a freshman in college. The one who couldn't walk or talk is an Eagle Scout who like hikes mountains and flies planes and goes skiing and all this stuff. And he couldn't talk. And he was on the United States debate team. Don't tell me what God can't do. Don't tell me. Expect miracles. Expectations are not premeditated resentments. That's not in the book. It says expect miracles. Expect God to show up in great amounts as long as I am staying in spiritual alignment. That's the deal. I don't know if any of you are like me. I'm a temper tantrum kind of girl. I can take down any 2-year-old, and nobody and nothing is going to make me do what I don't want to do. So just for today, have a spiritual temper tantrum. Have a good day, no matter what. Do not let them decide whether you're going to be happy, joyous, and free. Do not let them decide if you're going to be kind and loving towards all. Do not let them decide. Be what God's calling you to. when that phone rings and you don't want to answer it, remember you asked, let me help people today. It's God calling. It's God calling. That's why I'm here tonight. Not because it's a good idea, but because it's God's idea, not my idea. The distance tonight, when I look at my inventory, is going to be the distance between the program and Arisa's program. I have no interest in Arisa's program. I want to work towards God's program. And I'm willing today to go to any lengths, even when I don't like it, especially when I don't like it. So thank you guys for letting me be of service today. God bless you.